the television studios of Canton High School.
Welcome to the Downtown. I'm your host, John Pacitti, and I'm here with Coach Kaiser, and he's going to be telling us about how he got into coaching. How are you?
John, great to be here, buddy. Thanks for having me.
That's good. Describe how you got into basketball.
How I got into basketball? I was in second grade, and I was playing t-ball in Ohio. And what happened was I struck out in t-ball, came home, was bawling my eyes out, and my mother basically said, to my father, go back there and talk to him in the room. And when he came back and talked to me, he talked to me about how he played at the University of Akron for basketball, and I started to get interested in it. And from that point on, it was all basketball.
So you said that you lived in Ohio. Do you think living in Ohio was better for your basketball career?
Basically where I grew up, I'm from Norton, Ohio, but I went to Wadsworth High School, and I played for a guy by the name of Dave Sladke. Dave Sladke ended up being a Ohio High School Hall of Fame basketball coach, which is a pretty big deal because it's a big state. And, I had an opportunity to play for a guy for 3 years that really taught me about the game, about fundamentals, about life, about toughness. So, yeah, for me, living in Ohio at that particular time in the 80s was fantastic.
Do you think that he made you start coaching?
Oh, yes. Basically I had the opportunity to learn and grow, with his mentoring as a player. I started working basketball camps for him as well. But the other person that got me into coaching was my father, because he coached me as well. Mm-hmm. Like I said, my father played at the University of Akron. Growing up, I had to watch, I didn't have to watch, but I watched the Celtics and the Lakers, the Cleveland Cavaliers. So you watch all these games and you watch it with your dad, and basically he picks out and points out things to you. Mm-hmm. And, you just basically came up with a love for the game. And, those are the two main people that basically got me into coaching, was my high school coach and my father.
Do you think your father playing for that college, do you think that it holds like a weight on your shoulders going into basketball or on the team?
No, my father, he was the type of person that basically he wanted us to do whatever we wanted to do, myself and my brother. But I think the thing is I just fell in love with it. So, basically you get around it, you become immersed with it, and you fall in love with it, and you basically want to just bring that passion to other people. So that's how I ended up getting into coaching.
What is the process? Can you take us through the process before a game?
Oh, the process before a game. Well, I think a lot of the process before a game is just practice. So what you do in practice, how you do drills, how you basically work on your conditioning, your fundamentals, your strength, and basically you got to be able to shoot it, pass it, and dribble it. You got to be able to work with teammates, and you got to be able to basically, you got to be able to prepare with a scouting report. So we're in the taking over as the head coach at Canton High School. I'm in probably one of the best leagues in the state. So there's no off night. We're gonna be playing against Mansfield, Franklin, King Philip, Oliver Ames, Stoughton, North Attleboro, Milford. All these teams have very, very good talent, and I think our guys are going to be ready, but we have to basically be prepared, mentally and physically going into those games. So we got to have great practices, and we've got to have great concentration.
Do you think that communication will be a big key during your games?
Communication is always a big key. Basically, how you talk to players, how players talk to each other, how players talk to the officials. It's 32 minutes of absolute concentration. Concentration will be a key, but also communication. We have to basically make sure that we execute things offensively and defensively. We've got to make sure that we pinpoint where shooters are, the best player on the floor, how are we going to guard him? Are we going to deny him? Are we going to trap him? We've got to know where role players are. We can't let somebody get going. Where are they going to knock a shot down? So there's constant communication. When you see me on the sideline, you'll say to yourself, he acts kind of like an intense cartoon character.
Yeah.
So it'll be enjoyable.
What advice would you give to an athlete that is letting frustration take them from the game?
It's very easy to get frustrated. We had a jamboree the other day at Randolph. I had, one or two players that were frustrated. And what happens is it's the next play mentality. You have to literally forget that play and you got to move on, because if you focus on what happened in the past, all right, what's in the present, you're not going to do very, very well on. So we talk a lot about in the present. We talk about, can't worry about what happened yesterday. You're just trying to always get 1% better. You'll hear our guys in practice talk about 1% better every day. You'll hear me talk about 1% better. You'll hear me talk about process. It's all about the process of getting better. Everybody can always say that, I want the big prize. I want the big picture. I want that thing that's all the way at the top. I want the end result. But in order to get there, you got to take one step at a time. You got to climb that mountain all the way to the summit, one step at a time. And if you basically say to yourself, well, I think I'm going to bypass a couple things in order to jump a couple steps, what's going to happen is you're going to end up falling backwards. So you don't want to be frustrated. You want to constantly keep working to grow, and little steps at a time to get yourself better. And that's what I basically talk about and say.
Do you think that you see them use that strategy in school also?
Oh, I use that strategy all the time. I have wonderful students. My guy Derek Glass Jr., John Pacitti. I got my guy Glenn, Brendan Williams. We talk about with that you guys all the time about, one step at a time. Somebody doesn't do well at a test, all right? If somebody doesn't do well on a test, guess what? You can't say it's the end of the world. It's just a test. What you have to do is you have to really, really focus and concentrate on how am I going to get myself better. What do I need to do better? Do I need to talk to the teacher more? Do I need to study more? Do I need to put my phone down and study more? Do I need to stop playing video games and study more? You have to take breaks. You have to have your mind relax. But what it is you have to develop almost like a will that you want to get better. And that's a tough thing to do, in any facet of life that you do.
How do you describe how coaching impacted your life?
How has coaching impacted my life? Well, it goes back to Dave Slacky, right, and my father. They both impacted me. And what happens is when they both impacted me, I just think that it has an adverse effect on everybody that you deal with. So you can coach anybody. You can coach, some person that's at a restaurant. You can, if they're willing to listen, you can basically help motivate anybody. But you have to be real. It's about being real. It's about, there's an old saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So you got to let people know that you care. And I try to do that as a coach. My high school coach, he tried to do that with me, and he did a very good job. God rest his soul. He died about 4 or 5 years ago, coming up on December 13th. My father, he's been gone for like 10 years. And, basically I just try to take those teachings that they taught me to make people better.
Do you think that trust can build a big relationship between your players?
Trust is very, very huge. Again, it goes back to they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. If you don't get the trust of your players, you can't promise anything. Kids will come up to me and say, hey, I want more playing time. I want this. I want that, I always ask, what are you doing to basically move forward and be better yourself? How are you going to make yourself better? How are you going to make somebody else be better? And that's really a huge thing to basically ask is because kids, listen, kids are, so people are just downright, they can be selfish.
Yeah.
All right. We're all selfish. I mean, it's a human trait that, basically is on all of us. We want more, right? We want more, we want more, candy, all right? You go to the candy bowl, right? And you put your hand in there and you say, hey, I want one. Well, you want 6. You got to eventually say to yourself, I got to put one back. But, the thing is you're working on, listen, you're trying to tell people, hey, listen, you know what? You don't need that. What you need to do is this. You need to focus and concentrate on what you're doing. And, you got to make yourself better. You got to make other people better. And people got to know that you're trying to get better yourself. So I want my players to know that I'm trying to make myself better first, and then I'll ask them to get better. But that's part of communication as well. Every day you're communicating with your players.
Yeah.
You're communicating with your students. It's a non-stop thing. And you don't promise anything. You just basically say, listen, I'm going to be there for you to help you go where you want to go.
Do you see a different comparison in coaching from coaches in the NBA than high school?
Coaching's teaching. At the end of the day, some of the greatest coaches in the world are teachers, all right? Whether it was Red Auerbach, whether it was Phil Jackson, whether it was Jerry Sloan, whether it was, guys who were players in the NBA that became coaches, all right? Chuck Daly, great coach, all right? Brad Stevens, okay, great coach. Joe Mazzulla, great coach. These people are all teachers. If you went into their practices, and I have never gone into an NBA practice. I've read a lot of notes on NBA practices. I have watched a lot of college practices. I have watched a ton of high school practices. I've watched a ton of videos. The one common trait is that people who are really, really good at this craft of coaching is that they're teachers first. There's so much that you can teach a player or players, all right? You're constantly trying to make them, again, we use this word, better. But again, you try to make yourself better by, constantly just teaching the game. You're trying to give them one little nugget at a time.
Yeah.
And this happens in school. You're going to go into your math class. You're going to go into, and there's fantastic teachers in this Canton High School. If you go into any of these classes, they will give you nuggets, all right? Okay, to help you become a better student, a better person for the rest of your life. It's just, does the student have the willingness to want to grab onto it and say, I want to basically make this part of my brain and my mind?
What advice would you give a new coach coming into the basketball community?
You have to. You're first and foremost. You're always going to be a learner. You're a learner. Since I've been coaching basketball, I first got in, I was 20. I thought I knew everything. I got to 25, and I thought I still knew everything. I got to 30, and I was like, yeah, I'm still pretty good. And then I get to 35, and I'm like, you don't know anything. And then you get to 40, all right? Now I'm 53 years old, and I look back, and I was like, you know what? You should have had more of an open mind on things. You should have basically looked at things a little bit more differently. So, this is what happens. You have to have an open mind, all right? There's a great quote that I like to use. The mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open, all right? And, it's so true with the game of coaching in basketball. If you basically have a closed-off mind and you say, well, this is the only way to play, what's going to happen is things are going to bypass. And you got to have a relationship with your players, because your players may tell you, listen, this is what I'd be pretty good at. This is how I think that I can get a shot off or whatever. You know what? I'm willing to listen, because at the end of the day, they're the one who's playing. I'm not. So I try to work with my players to learn and grow and get better and, that sort of thing. So.
Take us through the process of finding new strategies.
Finding new strategies. My wife and kids at my house think that I have a Twitter addiction. All right. So one of the things that I do is every night I get on Twitter and I follow probably about 30 or 40 coaches throughout the world. We're talking all the way from Russia to China to Australia to the United States. All right. Basketball trainers, coaches, etc. I follow people who are motivational speakers. I'm always looking for new and improved ideas and drills to make myself better. And then what happens is like if I really like it, I repost it, all right, and I save it, and then I just try to incorporate some type of facet of that. I get on YouTube, I watch YouTube stuff, and then I have coaches that I'm friends with all across the state of Massachusetts, down along the East Coast, back in Ohio. You're always a phone call away, or you're always now we have webinars, we have Zoom calls. You can get on a Zoom with anybody in the country and in the world and basically do a clinic.
Yeah.
And I am always about those things. So I'm always trying to get myself better that way.
That's good. Explain to us how you keep your team positive during a loss.
Oh, how do you keep team positive during a loss? I mean, one of the things that I do is this. You have to be real with players. It's about, at the end of the day, guess what? You're going to have wins, you're going to have losses, and that's just the way it is, all right? When you have the wins, you don't get too high about the highs, and when you have a loss, you don't get too low about the losses. Some of the things that I'll say is this. I'll walk into, if we have a loss by 2 points, 1 point, 5 points, 20 points, I will walk in and I'll say, hey, listen, we got to bring it back tomorrow. We got to do a better job. All right, let's go, let's grow. But I want you guys to all understand something. We just ran out of time. And if you really think about it, right, if you played a game for 32 minutes, right, okay, and the team beat you by, let's say they beat you by 5, all right, if you really think about it, if you extended that game for another 32 minutes, maybe there would have been a chance that maybe we would have fought through and maybe scored a bucket or, a bucket more than them. And maybe we would have won. So you have to be positive in that regards to just, letting them know that it's not the greatest, the greatest loss in the world to have a loss. Nobody likes to lose. Losing stings. I've had this quote also. I learned this at a basketball camp. Somebody said, my ego is predicated on the scoreboard. And I thought about that, and I was like, you know what? If that's really what it's all about, then that's not right, right? What your ego is this. Your ego should be about, what kind of things did you learn from this game that you just did? If you won, you can't get too high about it, all right? Because people will be like, yeah, I'm really, really good. And then all of a sudden, guess what? They go back out and they play a game 2 nights later, and they lose to somebody that they should probably, people will say, on paper, you shouldn't have lost to, all right? And then, so you always have to stay balanced. Life is about balance, all right? One of the things that I really, really like, and I know that you guys learned this as seniors with Mr. Ryan Gordy's team, or with Mr. Ryan Gordy's class, his leadership class, is the pyramid of success. That whole pyramid of success is based on balance. Having balance. You got to constantly have balance. You have all the different facets, but you have to have balance in all the things that you do to basically grow. And if you have all those different things, guess what? Again, at the end of the day, if you lose a game, it's not going to matter. Because you know what? You just come back and somebody may come up to you and say, hey, you lost that game. Well, yeah. What are you going to do? You just move on. I'm a competitor. I'll get one tomorrow. No big deal.
Yeah. Have you tried to apply the pyramid of success to your players?
Well, we talk about different things. We talk about competitive greatness. I've talked with players about industriousness. And, I've talked to players about enthusiasm, passion, sincerity. I mean, there's a gob of words that are on there that are really, really good. Having intentness, adaptability, responsibility, accountability, having the right attitude. The big thing is attitude. If people have great attitudes, guess what? You don't worry about the losses. You don't let them. You don't let losses affect you. You don't let wins affect you. You just guess what? I'm going to be who I am. That's all.
Can you compare your coaching abilities from when you first started to now?
I laugh because when I first got into coaching, again, like I said, you're 20 years old and you're at your first basketball camp in Toledo, Ohio, and you're like, wow, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I've worked from that camp to now, I've worked over 100 camps. And what I've come to realize and find out is there's so much to the game of basketball with knowledge and coaching and players and all that I wasn't even close to being the person that I thought I was. So what happens is you become humble. You have a lot, and that's another word that's on the pyramid of success. You get a lot of humility. When you have humility, what happens is you really don't think too much. You think, you're not thinking less of yourself, but you just don't think, it doesn't matter that, it's not about me. It's about trying to just make people grow and get better. So.
Explain how you think Canton High basketball will do on their first game.
Well, I hope to get a W, and that's how you got to say it. You got to say, I hope to get a W. At the end of the day, guess what? I always go into games with the intent in mind of, again, it's a process. All right. How are we being in practice? How are we being with each other? How are we, interacting? How are we passing the ball? Are we all for one and one for all? All right, the Three Musketeers. We're going to play North Attleboro. They're going to be a very, very good team. Yes, they're going to be tough. They're going to be intense. We had a very good weekend at the Randolph Jamboree. We had three mini scrimmages. We played Scituate with Coach E. Roman's team from Scituate. We had Charlestown, who's really, really good, and we had also Zavarian. There's some things that happen in that game that basically we have to go into practice today, and we've got to work on. We've got to work on some press stuff. We've got to work on some zone work. We got to work on blocking out better. But those are all givens anyway. We got to work on those things anyway. And I always tell the guys, listen, we're going to be together for 120 days. That's how you got to look at it. 120 days from November 27th to, let's just say, March 20th. That's what my goal is. I want to be together for 120 days. And if we can basically focus on every single day being better with one facet, you don't worry so much about, trying to win your first game. Where you just say to yourself, I just want to basically be able to compete, and I want to be able to not just compete with North Attleboro. You're technically trying to compete with yourself. I want the players to basically be able to go out and compete so that they all bring their A games, they all feel good, they're all working together, and they all feel as one. And if they do that, everything else will take care of itself. If they're not doing that, then we don't know what the outcome would be.
Do you think that each player brings a certain thing to the table?
Absolutely. Every one of the guys that's on the varsity team has great talent of some sort. They have a skill set. We got guys that can handle. We got guys that can shoot it. We got guys that can rebound. We got guys that can defend. All right. And the thing is we just got to bring it together. And every day, that's what it is. It's all about bringing it together. And we're going to do that, And, we have very good JV players. We have very good freshman players. And I got a very, very good coaching staff. We're enthusiastic. We're upbeat. And, we're just, again, like I said, always trying to make ourselves better.
Thank you for being here, Coach Kaiser. and telling us about the season and how it unfold. And this is CCT. I'm John Pacitti. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, John.
Producer Jay Spiro, talent wrangler Julian Tavares, script supervisors JJ Lamont, studio display Nicholas Chewy, announcer Giovanni DiCasio, audio technician Staffy Gutierrez, tech director Minnie Vicky, show director Dylan Irvin, CG Brown CG Baptiste, set photographer Brian Karle, camera person 1 Derek Glass, camera person 2 Andy Samuel, PA and Slate, Laz McCarthy, Board Manager, Ryan Neeser, Social Media, Jack Norton.
We finna crash.
Drop my food.
Why were you eating?
I was hungry. Why were you on your phone?
Bro, the streaks.
Well,
We just gotta let this commence. Bro, the streaks.
Television, and now from the television studios of Canton High School.
Welcome to the Dog Pound. I'm your host Zaza with
Karle.
Today we have Best Buddies President Ashley in the studio with us.
Ashley, thank you for being our show.
Thank you for having me.
Ashley, tell us about Best Buddies.
So, Best Buddies is a nonprofit organization that provides friendships for students with disabilities, also known as IDDs, with students who do not. And many schools, like Canton, have what are called chapters, which is like a club that we do like fun activities and provide those friendships for these students.
Why did you join the Best Buddies?
During my freshman year, I did unified basketball and track, which is like Best Buddies. It's just you play like a basketball game against other towns with students who have disabilities and who do not. And I really enjoyed it. It was super fun. And me and a few girls who were seniors last year went to Miss Nick's and were like, okay, we want to do Best Buddies, because Best Buddies wasn't really like, we had it a few years ago and then it stopped. And last year we started up again. And yeah, it's super fun. And I did it because I loved unified basketball.
Explain the role of Best Buddy of what the Best Buddies president does.
The Best Buddies president oversees the whole chapter, and then I also work with the leadership team, which is like the vice president, secretary, treasurer, and we just like plan activities and oversee all like the buddies and stuff.
Tell us about some things Best Buddies have done.
So Best Buddies does a lot of events through like the actual organization itself, including the friendship walk. There's a Best Buddies prom. There's the polar plunge. And then as a school, we've done a few things. We do like parties during like Halloween and like a holiday party before winter break.
Describe some of the events coming up.
We're doing a holiday party the day before Christmas or holiday break, and we're gonna have a lot of fun activities and snacks, and it'll probably be a whole day event.
Did I hear something about the Celtics game?
Yeah, it's the Celtics does a night in like January where they have like tickets for pretty inexpensive, and a bunch of schools go with their buddies, and it's really fun. So hopefully we're doing that.
How can someone join the Best Buddies?
To join Best Buddies, you can reach out to anyone on the board, including me, Tess Giglio, Gisela Berardi, Abby Stock, Megan Donovan, Ashley Kovner, or Emma Cahill, or you can reach out to Miss Sweet or Miss Nix, who are the advisors.
All right. Thank you, Ashley, for your time today.
Of course.
We hope to inspire others to get involved with Best Buddies.
Announcer Chloe, audio technician Andrew, tech director Isabella, show director Nick Gillis, CG Kyle, script supervisor Dylan, set photographer Amelia, camera 1 person Sean, camera 2 Arenza, camera 3 Eva, EA Rudy.